I heard a lot of good things from the college reps about you guys. A lot of the reps said we have great students, and I believe that. I believe we have students that are going places, doing good things, going to have good careers, good futures. So now we've done that part, got some information, got some knowledge about places to get training and education, and now we are here to talk about the financial part of it. The reality sits in on the cost of tuition and the price it takes to fund your education. So we're very happy to have a representative from Kent State Trumbull, Miss Darlene Thorn, and she's going to talk to you about the process of financial aid, the ins and outs of it, how to apply. Juniors, it's not your turn yet, but we're planting seeds for you. We're getting you information right now so that you'll be more aware of it next year. Seniors, this is for you, mainly. We have Darlene Thorn from Kent Trumbull. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of information about financial aid. There's a lot here. When people are looking at doing the FAFSA, sometimes for them it becomes very difficult for them. Sometimes they become overwhelmed. Don't let this become an overwhelming situation for you. When you're doing the FAFSA and you're applying for financial aid, when you're in there working through the process, there's lots of information out there, but there's also hints out there to help you to succeed and get the right information out there. So this presentation is just going to go over some basic college costs, some tips for success, information about the 2019-2020 FAFSA, scholarship searches, and some resources and reminders for you. Now, looking up there, you're going to see this is some tuition charges. This is from 2017-2018. You can see there's Kent, Trumbull Campus, Ohio State, Youngstown, Mount Union, Eastern Gateway, and Akron. All these charges have changed. The one thing I can tell you about Kent State right now, we have what's called a guaranteed tuition rate, which went into effect this fall, and it's guaranteed for 4 years. So the term that you're going in at Kent State, you're guaranteed that tuition rate for 4 years. And the tuition rates don't include books, supplies, or housing, and what you're looking at up there is about a year. How can you pay for college? You can pay for it out of pocket or savings. Employer reimbursements. Some students have employers that will help reimburse them as they're going along. Veterans benefits. If you're a veteran or if your parent is a veteran, they may have benefits that they're willing to sign over to you. Scholarships, grants, federal WorkStudy, and loans. So some of the things you want to think about, don't let this process keep you from going to school. Don't let the finances keep you from going to school. You need to talk to financial representatives from colleges, talk to local banks, and most of all, talk with your parents. Never pay for scholarship opportunities or grants. They're free. Do not pay to complete a FAFSA. That is also free. And the one thing you want to keep in mind when you're doing that FAFSA, it's under .gov. There is a .com site out there. We'll ask you to pay money to complete. And you also want to be smart about how much money you borrow when you're in college, because you do have to pay that back. And after you've borrowed that money and you get a job, you may not be making that much money, and what they want you to pay back, you may not be able to afford. So watch what you're borrowing. So some FAFSA questions: how do I apply for the federal aid? Am I eligible for federal aid? Am I eligible to receive scholarships? What will I pay? What do I need to know about borrowing loans? Everybody's able to have student loans. Grant money, it's different. That's why you do the FAFSA. The FAFSA looks at family need. That also looks at whether or not you're eligible for state grants as well. Scholarships, that they're out there for everybody. So most scholarships may depend on your academics. Others may require you just to be part of an organization or complete an essay. So some philosophy of financial aid: it's available to families regardless of family income or college cost. Primarily responsibility of the family to pay for educational costs to the extent that they are able. So the FAFSA. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So some of the guidelines: the first thing you want to keep in mind, if you are a senior and you're looking at attending college in the fall of 2019, the FAFSA becomes available October 1st. When you go in to do that, you can put in all the schools that you're looking at attending. So you can put up to 10 schools in there. You want to make sure you know the priority deadline for all the schools that you're planning on attending. Most schools are going to be either December 1st or February 1st. For Kent State, it's December 1st. The 2019-2020 FAFSA will use 2017 federal tax information. When you're in there, you're going to use what's called the IRS Data Retrieval tool if you can. And the reason for that takes the information straight from the IRS, and it's going to answer a lot of questions, and it saves you a lot of headaches along the way. And if you get put into what's called verification, it saves you one less process. And it allows the FAFSA to pull that income right from the IRS. Information needed to apply: students' and parents' social security numbers, federal tax information or tax returns including W-2 information, records of untaxed income such as child support, interest income, or information on cash, savings, checking, investments, and business farm assets. Benefits applying early for the FAFSA is alignment. Lots of college application deadlines for fall align with the FAFSA availability, so it's less confusing for you. It gives you information using real information and not estimated tax information on your FAFSA. The IRS Data Retrieval tool will be available October 1st, and that's when the FAFSA becomes available. Earlier recipients of accepted family contributions, EFCs, help with assessing net costs for school, and it gives you less pressure, so it gives you more time before most state and school financial aid deadlines, and it also gives you, the student, more time to compare costs and financial aid before signing to a school. Federal Student Aid ID, that's FSA ID, everybody needs one. The student needs one, and the parent needs one. This is how you're going to sign that FAFSA electronically. Your password needs to be updated every 18 months. And to get that, to create that, you're going to go to fsaid.ed.gov. And I tell all my students, write it down. It's case sensitive. It has 5 passwords. And it's something that you're not going to use every day, but you're going to need it. And when you need it, you want to be able to make sure you have the correct information. Federal Student Aid ID, like it says, it has, you must set up 4 challenge questions. Questions 1 and 2, you select from a drop-down box menu. Questions 3 and 4, you're going to create your own. And then they want you to add a mobile phone number for account retrieval purposes. When you're creating these IDs, parents and students create their own. You have to use separate email addresses to do this. And when you're doing this, you do not want to use your high school email, because once you leave high school, that email is no longer available to you. So you want to make sure you're using another email that you're going to be using. This is what the FAFSA page looks like when you go in. And remember, it's FAFSA.gov. When you go in, you're going to log in as a new to FAFSA and start your processes from there. The one thing new this year with FAFSA, they also have it set up for a mobile app. You can find that in the Apple Store or under Google Play for Android phones. You can also, like I said, complete the FAFSA on your mobile app. You can also manage your FSA ID, PIN, and that information from that app as well. The FAFSA on the web, the students are going to log in with your federal student ID to begin with, and that's there on the left-hand side. The parent's still going to need their federal student ID to sign the FAFSA at the end. When you get in there, you're going to see an 1819 tab, and you're going to see a 1920 tab. If you're starting fall of 2019, you need to use the 1920 FAFSA. The one that's out there for the 1819 is for students coming to a university in the spring semesters. So make sure you're using the correct FAFSA, because if you use the wrong one and you go to the college that you're going to go to and you're going to say, where's my FAFSA? Where's my financial aid? And they're going to say, we don't have one for you. That's probably why. You did the wrong year. And if you're a junior, you're going to wait. So don't do it early. You wait until you're the October before the year you're going to start. FAFSA on the web has 7 sections. 7 sections include parent and student information. It has built-in edits to prevent errors. It uses skip logic to remove unnecessary questions. And it has tooltips available for each question. So where you see that little question mark when you're answering something, if you're not sure how to answer, you click on the question mark and it will tell you what they're looking for. First, you have student demographics. So they're going to ask you name, social security number, date of birth. When you're filling this out, you need to fill it out exactly like your social security card is. Everything from the FAFSA and your college is based on your legal name, your social security number, and your date of birth. When one of those 3 things do not match at the school, it's not going to pull into the school. The other thing, when FAFSA is using this information, they're pulling it from the Social Security Administration. So that's why these things need to match exactly. If you have a nickname, do not use your nickname here. This is where you need to use that legal name. So some of the student demographics, you have address, email, residency, phone number, driver's license. If you have a permit, you still use that number off your permit, because that permit number will be your driver's license number later on. It asks for student marital status. You still need to answer that. Citizenship, student education information, student and parent education completed information, student eligibility, and then we'll go over some of the other information here. Marital status, you're going to mark you're single if you're not married. Citizenship, yes, I'm a U.S. citizen. If you're not, you need to go ahead, pull down the pull-down box, and choose the appropriate question. For some students, if you have a permanent green card, that considers you as a U.S. citizen, so you're eligible to use federal financial aid. But if you're not sure, click on the question mark. It'll tell you exactly what they're looking for. Gentlemen, this is important. If you have not yet signed up for the selective service, you need to do so. You can also get to the selective service site by going to www.sss.gov, because to be eligible for federal financial aid, you need to be registered with the selective service. If you haven't done it yet, where it says, are you registered for the selective service? No. The next question will say, do you want us to register you? You want to say yes. Save yourself some headaches right now. Make sure you have that done. They're going to ask you, what are you going to have when you graduate from high school? Do you have a diploma? Do you have a GED? Answer the appropriate question. What will your college grade level be when you go to college in the 18-19 school year? Well, we'll make that the 19-20 school year when you go. You're going to be first-year freshman. What degree or certificate are you working on when you're going to college? You're going to mark first bachelor's degree. Or if you're going to go someplace and do an associate degree, mark associate degree. If you mark the wrong spot here and you mark second bachelor's degree, if you were ever grant eligible, it's going to go to the school and say you're not grant eligible. So make sure you're marking the right answers. Here they're going to ask you, are you interested in federal work study? Mark yes. It doesn't hurt. That way, if you go off to college and you have that opportunity to have work study and have a job on campus, work study helps to supplement the money that you're being paid to work on that in that department. So mark yes. You need to make sure that you answer the questions as they go along. So are you a foster youth or were you any time in foster care? Answer it appropriately. And then it's going to get into high school completion rate for parents. All they want to know is what grade level your parent completed. This is just general information for statistics, but it also, if you're going to a college, that they want to know, are you the first year generation going to college? If there's scholarships for that, they need to know that up front so that you have that opportunity. So make sure you're answering those questions. It's going to ask you for the name of your high school. Make sure you have that information in there and any other information that they're requesting you to fill in. If you don't put that in, that holds up that FAFSA as well. You have to have graduated high school to be eligible for federal financial aid. School sections, you're going to select the schools that you want to receive your FAFSA. Like I said, you can add up to 10 schools. If you're not sure where you want to go, put in the schools that you're thinking about. Everybody will get that information. Once you've made that decision where you want to go, that school has it. That saves you another step later on. You can also find school codes when you go in there. You're going to search for the school, click on the school, or if you're talking to your financial aid office at the school you're going to go to, they can give you that school code to automatically put in. The next thing, we have to know what your dependency status is. So a dependent student is a student who's under the age of 24, single, has no children, has not been a veteran of the armed forces. or an independent student, which is someone who is already married, they've served in the armed forces, or they have children that they're supporting over 51%. Answer your questions, and if you answer no to all of these, you're going to be considered a dependent student. If you answer yes to one, then that makes you independent. That makes a difference on financial aid. For some students, you may have what's called a special circumstance as far as this dependency status goes. You need to still fill out the information and put in everything the best that you can. If you don't have parent information because you're in not living with your parents, maybe you have somebody other than a legal guardian, so maybe your grandparents are raising you, or your aunt or uncle, your brother, sister. They're not considered your legal guardian, so you can't put their information in, so you would have to leave that blank to continue on. If you have one of these circumstances, this FAFSA will end up going to the school rejected. So you need to talk to your financial aid counselor where you're planning on going to work on this circumstance, and they will help you get through that situation. Parent demographics, they want biographical and household information. When they're going in and answering these questions, this program is going to start automatically calculating the number in the household as you go along. Be sure to use the tools, the tip tools, if you're not sure. Parent information on the FAFSA. Whose information should be on the FAFSA? Like I said, legal parent only, or parents. Who are the legal parents? It's your biological or adoptive parent, step-parent if married. Who's not your legal guardian or your legal parent? Like I said, relatives who have not adopted the student, so grandparents, aunts, uncles, older siblings. Step-parents who have not adopted a student. Only persons providing parental information. Foster parents, legal guardians, custodians who have not adopted students. So keep that in mind. When you're in there and it says, are you in a legal guardianship? If you have parents, then no, you're not in a legal guardianship, okay? Some students think, my parent's my legal guardian, and they mark legal guardianship. That's something you're answering wrong, so make sure you mark that correctly. Legal parent marital information. The FAFSA asks, never married or married, unmarried. The information here just kind of gives you that for the parent. If they're unmarried, if your parents are unmarried and live together, you're still providing information. If they were never married and you only live with one of the parents, you're going to use the one parent's information and not the other. If your parents divorced and remarried, whatever parent you're getting the information from, if they're remarried, it's mom or dad, and that's step-parent. If your parents are divorced, whichever parent is giving you the most financial support, you're going to use that parent, just the one. And if your parent is widowed, then of course it's just that parent's information. Like I said, they're going to ask for parent household information, and as they're going along based on the tax transcript information that's being pulled in from the IRS, that'll be answered. If you're putting that in on your own, just follow and answer the questions as they pertain. I mentioned using the IRS Data Retrieval tool. I highly suggest using that. Like I said, it helps a lot when you're filling it out. Makes things a lot easier, answers a lot of questions up front. If your parent is married and filing jointly, they can use the IRS Data Retrieval tool. If your parents are married and filing separate, you cannot use it. If you have a foreign tax return or a Puerto Rican tax return, you cannot use the data retrieval tool. So keep those things in mind. The IRS data retrieval tool, while completing the FAFSA, applicant may submit real-time requests to the IRS for tax data, and the IRS will authenticate taxpayer identity. If match is found, the IRS sends real-time results to the application in a new browser window. Applicants choose whether or not to transfer data to the FAFSA. You want to mark yes. And then here you'll have parents' federal student ID. This is where they're going to end up finishing their information. Once you've signed it and you submit it, this is the data information from that data retrieval tool. When your parent's in there, or if you're working with them, make sure everything has to match in that box the same way it is on that tax return for that tax year. If something's off, it's not going to pull in that tax return. So make sure everything's all correct. Make sure the address that you're inputting is the same address that's on that tax return for that tax return year. Okay, parent marital status and IRS data retrieval tool, like I said, if you file a joint tax return for 2017 but no longer married when you filled out the FAFSA, you will not be able to use the IRS data retrieval tool. You must enter the income manually into FAFSA and subtract the former spouse's tax return information to correctly answer the FAFSA questions only about yourself. If you did file a joint tax return for 2017, but you are married when you filled out the FAFSA, you and your current spouse need to supply the 2017 tax information. So if you were single in 2017, and then in 2018 or 2019 when you're doing the FAFSA and you're married, your parents married, they're going to use that information as a step parent as well. They're going to ask for financial information for the parent, like the additional untaxed income and assets. Keep in mind, your home is not an asset. When they're looking at assets, they're looking at a second home, summer property, investments. Same questions as the parent section. Can also use the IRS data retrieval tool. So as a student, if you filed a tax return and you're going to go, let's see, for the next school year, you're using 2017 tax information. If you filed a tax return in 2017, you can use the IRS data retrieval tool as well. If you didn't work, you put a 0 in underneath income. If you worked but you didn't file, you're going to have to use your W-2 to pull off information from there. And just again, like I said, if the student didn't work in 2017, if you didn't file taxes, in 2017, but you worked, you're going to use your W-2s to supply the information. Same thing, they're going to want to know how much money you have, cash, savings, or checking, net worth of investments, and including real estate. Like it says, not your home. Those would most likely be zeros as a student. Some errors to avoid Read instructions and complete all sections correctly. Use the tooltips to answer questions that you're not sure about. Errors on the FAFSA or supplemental forms may delay application processing and result in loss of financial aid funds. If your FAFSA is rejected and there's a deadline at your school to receive additional funding or special scholarship opportunities, you could lose those opportunities. So I highly recommend you use the data retrieval tool because it pulls that information right from the IRS. Some of the errors that are on a FAFSA: Social Security number, date of birth, the information on whether your parents divorced, remarried, income earned by parent or step-parent, U.S. income taxes paid and household size. Pay attention when you're doing this. Make sure everything's correct as you're going along. It's easy enough when you're typing just to slightly hit another key and put something in wrong. Make sure if you're inputting information from a tax return or W-2, the income that you made in a year, for example, if you made $20,000, and when it says what's your income tax paid for 2017, $20,000 is not taxes that you paid. So pay attention to that. Those sort of mistakes cause what's called a rejection from your FAFSA, which keeps that from processing, which makes it a longer process for you to get that taken care of. At the end, you're going to sign and submit your FAFSA. Your parent then is going to sign and submit. You're going to get a confirmation page. On that confirmation page, it's going to give you a DRN number, but the biggest thing when you scroll down that confirmation page, it's going to give you the EFC, which is the expected family contribution. That's not a money amount, but that's the number the school is going to use to tell us how much money that you're eligible for, grant money if you're eligible. This will also tell you student loan eligibility. These are some FAFSA resources, and you can access these underneath studentaid.gov. These will also help to answer a lot of questions. I highly recommend you go underneath studentaid.gov before you start doing your FAFSA. It'll answer questions in there as well before you fill that out. So financial aid awarding processes. You've done your FAFSA on the web. It goes to the Department of Education. You're going to get your information saying it's completed, and you'll be able to click on your information and retrieve that information. The college will also get that information electronically from FAFSA, but let me tell you, when you get your confirmation, it says the school will have this information in 3 days. We don't have it in 3 days. You need to give it a couple of weeks. This is an example of what's a student aid report. This is what you would get in the mail, and it's going to ask you to look at this and make sure everything on there is correct. Sometimes they have little check marks in these boxes. That means that something they're questioning, go to those questions and make sure those are correct. If there's a mistake, you can always go back into FAFSA and make the corrections electronically, hence to make sure that you know that SFA ID number. Or you can mail back in this paperwork. Mailing back the paperwork will take longer. So what's the EFC? It's calculated by the Department of Education, and it's an index number, like I said, not a dollar amount. It stays the same regardless of whatever school you go to. It determines if a student is eligible for federal state grants. Grants can vary from public versus private universities, but the Pell Grant, if you're eligible for that, that doesn't change. If you're going to a private university, whether it's private or state, The Pell Grant, it's a set amount of money. It does not adjust per school. It does not affect availability to receive federal student loan eligibility, and it helps to determine a student's financial need. So cost of attendance or a budget, the things that you're going to find in that are direct costs are your tuition, room, and board. Keep in mind, if you're going to college and you're going to live on campus, you have to figure in room and board. Some of your indirect costs are going to be books, transportation, and then there's miscellaneous. This varies widely from college to college depending on whether, like I said, they're private or state. This is just an idea of what a cost of attendance or a budget would be. This is based on Kent State. And like I said, this is based on our 18-19 cohort rates. And there's a big difference, as you see, if you're an in-state student versus an out-of-state student. You want to keep that in mind if you're going out-of-state to college, because you're going to be an out-of-state resident, and you're going to be paying their out-of-state residency fees. When you're looking at that, you have, like I said, tuition, room and board. That's going to vary depending on what kind of room you have, whether it's a double, single, your basic meal plan. That varies too, depending on which meal plan you're going to take. There's different meal plans. Your books and supplies, transportation, miscellaneous and personal, and then there's your total fees. And underneath miscellaneous and personal, if you're using student loans, there's a fee with student loans. You're looking at about, I think it's $65, $68 for a year. That's underneath that miscellaneous. And underneath your tuition, there's a career service fee. It's added into your tuition. So determining financial need, they look at the cost of attendance and the family expected contribution. When they subtract the two, that's when we get your financial need. The college receives your electronic copy of your FAFSA, and from there, the school will start processing that FAFSA information. Once we have the information and it's processed, then the college or colleges are going to send you either a mailed award letter or an email with that information. So look out for that information to come to you. If you're not receiving that information, and it's been a while, if you're doing it October 1st, you're not going to get that information by December 1st. You're not probably going to get it until late February, early March for the incoming fall students. So if you don't have that information by then, you need to be contacting the schools and seeing if they've started awarding freshmen yet. And if they have, checking on your financial aid status, because maybe there's an issue with your FAFSA. Maybe your FAFSA was put in a process called verification, and if so, you want to get to work on that right away. Some types of financial aid. You have gift aid, which are scholarships, which is free money. You have grants. You have self-help aid, which is work programs, and student loans. Remember, student loans, money you're going to have to pay back. Scholarships, it's free money, like I said. Some are merit-based, and you may not need to have a FAFSA. Other merit-based ones may need you to have a FAFSA completed. You want to make sure that you're meeting that deadline and getting those done early. There's the internal scholarships at schools. You need to pay attention to admission deadlines. There's different criteria for different colleges, and if you're not meeting those deadlines for applying and you have a merit-based scholarship like we have for our incoming freshmen, our deadline for the Trumbull campus is May 1st. If you haven't applied to us by May 1st, we're not going to look at that merit scholarship for you based on your GPA. And if you were out front, I'm sure you got one of those flyers from the front table that has that information on it. And if you didn't, just stop by and see me after the presentation. There's also external scholarship searches, and those are website searches. So when should you start looking for a scholarship? If you're a senior, you should be doing that right now. You want to start early, make a plan. Talk to your guidance counselor, see what's available. Start looking at the colleges you're looking at attending to see what kind of scholarships you can apply for. Ask academic departments. Certain departments may have specific scholarships for their department. Look online, and like I said, be aware of deadlines. Because when it comes to scholarships, they stick to deadlines. Other resources that you can look for scholarships, volunteer opportunities may lead you to service-oriented scholarships. Parents or student employers, some parents' employment may offer scholarships for their students. There's scholarship opportunities, local community sections of the newspaper. Local organizations may run an art or poetry contest to win a scholarship. Bulletin boards at the library could have scholarship opportunities. Some parents might belong to certain organizations like the Lions Club or the Moose. They may have scholarships. Check on those different ones. Some online search places that you can look for online scholarships: fastweb.com, collegeboard.org, and scholarship.com. You're going to set up an account, but you don't want to sign up for too many. Take your time, and whatever you do, do not pay for a scholarship search. There's organizations out there to say, if you give us X amount of money, we'll search for scholarships. Right there. That's all free. Same thing, doing the FAFSA. If you get into the wrong FAFSA website, if you're not going to the .gov site and you go to .com, when you get to the end, they're going to say, it used to be like $85. You're not paying for your FAFSA. That's free. The Pell Grant. The max you can get in the Pell Grant is $6,095. That's for the 18-19 year. That could go up a little bit. It may or may not. That depends on the federal government. That is a set amount. That's a full-time amount. That's split in half for fall, half for spring. That's not going to change at any of the schools that you're looking at. There's also the Federal Supplement Educational Opportunity Grant. That's why I'm saying do the FAFSA early. The earlier you get it done, this is additional funding that's given to the schools by the federal government. It's not a whole lot of money. It's on a first-come, first-served basis. Once it runs out, it runs out. There's also the Teacher Education Assistance for College and Higher Ed Education Grant, what's called the TEACH Grant. So if you're looking at becoming a teacher, this is something you can look into as well. It's free money if you meet the requirements and you meet the obligation at the end, which requires you to work in a low-income, high-need area. If you don't meet the requirement, that free money will revert to a student loan. Federal student loans, there's two loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. That's kind of also based on that FAFSA information. As a freshman, under federal student loans, you're only eligible for $5,500. Currently, this year, the rate is 5.05%. It's a fixed rate. That rate can fluctuate based on whatever the initial year that you're using your loan, and that's all set by the federal government. The difference between the two, subsidized money, there's no interest accruing on that while you're in school as long as you meet the subsidy requirement. Unsubsidized money starts accruing interest when you first start borrowing. How to figure out your costs? You have three main costs. So you want to visit the billing office website, which is known as the bursar's office in colleges, and find the tuition charges. If you know that you're going to be living on campus, then you need to find the information for residency services and look at the housing and meal plan. You can also go to the FAFSA Forecaster. That's located on the home screen. That will also help you to estimate cost at selected schools. You can also use the net price calculator, and you'll find that underneath collegecost.ed.gov. That will also help you to estimate some of those costs. Some resources that you can use. This is the information for the Federal Student Information Center to FAFSA. So if you have a problem with the FAFSA, if you have a problem with the Federal Student ID, this is who you're going to call, 1-800-4FED-AID. You can talk with them, you can email them, you can chat with them. But if you have problems, this is who you're going to have to contact. If it's something that's on that FAFSA that you can't get in, if you can't get into your Federal Student Aid ID because you did something wrong with that, nobody at the school can help you. You have to call them. Now, one thing new with the FAFSA, oops, do you need that back? There. Okay? Okay, so there's something new with the FAFSA. Like I said, they have that mobile app that you can use. Okay, so you can access all that information. And like you talked about going to that studentaid.gov site, in there, there's all kinds of information. Go in there, look at it. It talks about student loans. It has a student loan repayment calculator to show you what it would look like paying back on your loan, how much interest, what a payment would look like. That can be very helpful. Like I said, it answers questions you may have about FAFSA, answers about questions about the Teach Grant. They also have underneath there, underneath studentaid.gov, these publications that you go ahead and take a look at as well. And the one there's funding your education and a college preparation checklist. And there's just some social media websites that you can also check on financial aid through Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And there's some other helpful websites. The www.2.ed.gov/parent has information to assist parents with the financial aid process. So just to review over some of this, you complete your admissions application. If you haven't done so, start applying to your colleges and complete those applications. Apply for your FSA ID. Complete your FAFSA beginning October 1st if you're planning on going to school fall of 2019. Start searching for your scholarships. Figure out your costs. Once you're admitted, be sure to check your school email regularly for information and updates. The one thing I want to say with this about checking that your school information, whatever college you're going to go to, financial aid, bursars, your advisors, they're all going to be sending you emails about things. If there's an issue with your FAFSA and you're in verification, guess what? You're going to get something in either your portal or in your email account. Check that regularly. If you think there's something wrong and you're not getting information, check on it. Make sure if you're doing your federal student aid IDs, you and your parent have to have separate email addresses. Make sure when you're creating those federal student aid IDs, students, create your own ID. And then have your parent create your own, because I've seen where parents are creating the IDs information gets crossed, and then the student goes to apply for their student loan, and they're putting in their loan information underneath studentloans.gov, and their loan's not pulling in, and whenever they go out there and look, well, guess what? Everything's been done underneath their parent and not the student. And parent, if there's parents in here, your federal student aid ID will be used if you're going to use a Parent Plus loan. Is there any questions?